I introduce the presenters, just letting people know that we do have a keynote closing speaker, Anae Manumeyer, after this. So we highly encourage you to join us. I think it'll be a fabulous session. And you can go back to Anae Manumeyer's link to her session in the Access Pass. Also, before you go on to Anae Manumeyer for the closing keynote, we do have surveys, and you folks have been given links to it throughout the sessions, but please go ahead and do the surveys for the different sessions that you've attended today, including this one. Your feedback is very valuable for us so that we can share that with our presenters and also make our planning in the future a lot better. So, and those links for the survey will be coming out towards the end of today's session when it closes. So again, please do the surveys for us. So without further ado, mahalo to our team that's coming up to present next. I'd like to welcome the North Shore Ethnographic Field School, and they will be presenting Waialua Moku, Voices of Kanaka. Okay.
Aloha mai kakou. My name is Konoi Wong, and everyone here, you can see on the screen, we're all a part of the North Shore Ethnographic Field School, which is a partnership between Kamehameha School's Aina Ulu partners and the University of Hawaii at Manoa. So at this time, Kumu Tai Kavika Tengan will take it over, and he'll kick off our presentation for us.
Mahalo. Just real fast though, Kanoi, is our slideshow showing to people?
It's loading and it will be showing right now. Present. Okay.
Okay, great. And maybe we can just go to that first opening Oli slide. This is aloha mai kakou, everyone. My name is Tai Kavika Tengan. I'm an associate professor in ethnic studies and anthropology here at UH Manoa, and director of the North Shore Field School. This is an Oli that was developed specifically for a field school that is based upon an Oli that Hi'iaka gave when she entered Waialua. But we sort of reconfigured it as an Oli kind of noi komo to ask permission to enter the space, which we also, in this case, is kind of entering that spiritual mo'olelo space of Waialua. So wanted to offer this as we go to that aina in our talk story here. O e alua kai leo nui walono ka uka o li hue mai kanani o paala ua paina malini ne ia aina e he akuana noe e komo me he aloha la mai kuli ga leo he leo no ke ga ie. Oh yeah, mahalo. So this field school that we're now in, which is focused primarily on the collection of mo'olelo through oral history interviews of kūpuna, started off actually as an archaeology field school back in 2013, and it was imagined especially as a way of helping to train Native Hawaiian and local archaeologists, and in partnership with Kamehameha Schools to train our own Kanaka and people of the islands to be in the field and more able to malama, to care for these wahi kūpuna, these ancestral places. And Kamehameha Schools at the time in 2008 had first released a big master plan for the North Shore. And that's when we started discussions and finally got a field school established 2013. And it was with their sponsorship. We also spent a number of years working with kūpuna, talking story with folks, especially in the Waialua Hawaiian Civic Club, to get their mana'o on what is pono in terms of doing a field school on a heiau site, such as Pupopolo. And it's through that we established the connections we did that was really important throughout the time that it was doing archaeology training, both at Kupopolo Heiau, and it was actually 3 years at Kupopolo, and then 2 years at Uko'a. And then shifting in 2018 for the first ethnographic field school. Ethnographic kind of being study of contemporary culture, and for us the main focus was doing oral history interviews, talking story with many of those same kūpuna that we had been working with over those years that we were in archaeology field school, but collecting their stories of place and community, especially in the context of a very rapidly changing North Shore. So again, the collaboration especially was with Aina Ulu program, and so we mahalo them as well as our collaborators in the Civic Club and all of the kūpuna of Waialua that have guided us, both seen and unseen. These are the learning outcomes for our students. We have a mix of both undergraduate and graduate students. Each year there's a different kind of balance between them. We try to max the class out at 20 students. I think last year we had about 15 or 16, but we also always save a place for at least 1 or 2 community members, especially from Waialua, that are interested in participating and learning these same skills we're trying to teach our students. I'm not going to go through through all of this, but I would just highlight that a big focus for us has really been on building pono relationships with the community and with the Aina. So we spend quite a lot of time in developing and fostering those relationships, connecting the haumana as well as our staff. We have a big staff to those, we call them narrators. That's the oral history term for people who get interviewed. They're not interviewees, but they're narrators because they're the ones narrating the story. So we spend a lot of time working with our narrators just so that they get to know us and feel comfortable talking to us. We also try to get to know the Aina as well and do huaka'i, and preferably with the kūpuna there when we do these little huaka'i so they can talk about those places that they grew up, which in most cases are very different today than they are when they were keiki and such. And then we focus on doing interviews, learning how to transcribe, thinking about how all of this works in terms of the field, the professional fields of like contract work, cultural resource management, heritage management, all of those sorts of things. And again, with the idea of getting them the training on how to do it in the right way. Okay, and I think that might be it for me. I think the next video is just a video that was done 2 years ago after the second year of the field school that UH did a news piece to kind of highlight some of the work.
Those days, the Hawaiian people lived off the land. Their stories are really important. They hold lots of life lessons, lots of golden nuggets that we can use and apply to today and in our future. What I would like for my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, to know what Aliho was like. I call it the century where I grew up. With aloha that runs deep as the morning sun
It's a community in flux and in change with a lot of the transformations after the plantation closed with tourism and development. So it really captures the place that many Hawaii communities are in right now.
It reinforced my belief that when you're tied to your community and you know your community and the value of your community, even more so you become motivated to do things, you know, for the community. The stories are told to their key.
So that was the video. And I would just mention one of the key individuals in this field school who couldn't be here today, Keola Silva, who's also a vice principal at Kamehameha Elementary School, which is why he can't be here right now. Was really one of the core individuals. He started off as an advanced graduate student and kind of immediately as this important alaka'i the first year when we did 2018. And him being from Waialua was so important, and it really added so much depth. And he was really only doing it because he wanted to be out there with his family, his community. And he then became a kumu the next 2 years in 2019 and 2020. So we're glad to be able to represent a little bit of his voice here. And now that I've actually jumped into the chat, I see we also have some ohana of the kūpuna that we got to interview and kuka with, and hopefully can invite some of them to join in the discussion later. So, oia wale no for me, and I'm gonna.
Mahalo. And so this is Kanoi, just kind of going over our class involved talking with kūpuna and learning how to prepare and conduct in-depth oral history interviews. And focusing on that. And so, you know, kind of our talk today is going to be a little bit about our roles in the program. And then at the end, we're so excited to share with you some of the story maps that were completed about our kūpuna. And you feel free to go onto our website, North Shore Field School, to learn more about them and their stories. And so for me, my role actually with oral history started off with my own ohana. This is a picture of my kūpuna. Edwina and Dale Wong of Wahiawa, and Haunani and Sam Leong of Kailua. And when I was little, I loved listening to their stories, and I still do. And just that recognition in oral history that everyone has a story to share, and that all we have to do is just take the time to listen and record. And, you know, nowadays, with all of us being at home, wherever we are in our hale, we have people and friends and neighbors nearby who we can talk to or even call up on the phone. And so just some things that I wanted to offer for all of you to engage in your own oral history journeys and process with your ohana and those near you. There's just simple questions you can ask related to mele, mo'olalo, and mo'okuauhau. And I think that these things are just good segues to get a conversation going and to ask these questions and learn about the lives of others. You know, during this quarantine time, I've learned a lot about being present with those around me. And these questions and things have really helped to do that. So starting off with just the first basic question of mele, what is your favorite hymn? And it's not only asking about the song, but also maybe offering to sing it with them or to hear them sing it in the way that they liked it to be done. If you hear a song on the radio, asking someone, do you remember this song? Or what does this song make you think of? You know, we all have those special songs that are connected to memories that are special to us. And we just need to remember sometimes, you know, have a little Kickstarter to get it going. We teach our students that oral history interviews often begin with early childhood memories and lifetimes. And so one of the first questions we encourage them to ask is, when and where were you born? Tell me about your childhood. Those are often easy conversational starters that lead to a myriad of stories and experiences that people are often more than willing to share. And then mo'okuauhau is something that's so important to us as Hawaiians, you know, knowing where we come from and the aina that we come from and the relations that we have to one another. And so I'm always interested to learn about my tutu's tutu, her tutu lady and tutu man, as she would call them. And so asking them questions about what did they look like? What did he smell like? What did he do? Just simple things like that. And I encourage all of you to take this time and to engage in conversations and to record them. And by recording, it doesn't have to be, you know, something so formal with a video camera, but it can just be a little voice memo on your phone, and then you can save it, and it's something special to have later on. So kind of moving on, we're going to switch over to Kavika, who's going to talk about his time in the program.
Yeah, aloha everybody. Just mahalo for sharing this space with us. I'm going to share my perspective and my experiences as a student throughout this program. So I've been tasked with talking about not only my experience, but a little bit about the technologies. So this kind of got me to thinking lots of different things that I've learned, that I'm still learning. So I selected this picture because this is a picture of the late Uncle Alfred Alameda, the kūpuna of Waialua. Aloha no. I see Trisha here in the chat. Aloha nui, Trisha. So yeah, so these are kind of the talking points I'm going to talk about. The a'o, aloha, ahunui, alu, ala, all things that I've learned, not only from the kula nui, but also from the community of Waialua, especially this gentleman I have over here. Love him so much, I miss him so much, and yeah, so I kind of haku'd a little thing at the bottom over there. O ku'ulehua mamo, ipunu ika kukui, puiki, iane ma kaihukai. And that's kind of a little play on words because it's puiki. And I don't think he was mentioned, but community is mentioned, but also Uncle Moki Labra. He played a big part in my education over there. Aloha nui to him. I don't know if he's in the chat or not, but yeah. So the things that we learned, so the technologies, so we learned how to use these technologies back in the day. Well, first, this technology was actually the Kanaka, the person, and with our voices and how that's perpetuated through oral history, traditions in Mele and Mo'olelo. Then it was the Nupepa, the books and stuff like that. And then, I don't know if you can see on the bottom of the picture there, there's this little technology, yeah, from Kainae, this little voice recorder to capture actually his voice. And, you know, it's such a wonderful tool because, you know, when our kūpuna pass away and they're not there, we can read stuff and stuff, but actually hearing their voice adds another layer because it's that depth, and you just cherish that so much. And so moving on to the second thing is aloha, and that's a big thing that's not only shared but kind of learned. You know, you kind of got to learn it in a sense. And I'm talking from the perspective as a student at the Kulanui, but this is grounded. The sources are Ohanas and our Kaiulu, which Konoe opened it with, and then Kaiulu will be after. So just want to acknowledge where the aloha comes from. So it's kind of funny too. I was kind of thinking on a closing of that year. I wasn't there because I love one of my kūpuna, my tutukane. But that was the year Uncle Alfred participated, and at our closing ceremony, we was asked to share a little something. It was just aina aloha, and that's what I ike over there. That's what I learned. That's what I feel, you know. And I love the people in that aina so much. So that's what I learned from over there. And the ahunui is that patience. You know, we're kind of learning with all these new technologies, flitting around, but the patience that the kūpuna had with us, you know, sharing, opening up their space, and the aina, you know, they're so welcoming. So they shared their patience, and we kind of look, so we go, oh, pili pili. So, you know, maybe as I get older, I can have some of that wisdom and be patient just like them. And the alu is combining all these things. So it's kind of like, as a student, we're learning about these things such as racism and all this intersectionalities and stuff like that. But, you know, learning from Uncle Alfred, that stuff was already being contended with back in the day. I remember him telling on one of his stories about his youth when he had the bombings during World War II. And then, you know, it's like he had some Japanese friends, little kids, but so the kumus would bring all the kids inside the bomb shelters, but they left the Japanese kids outside, and Uncle was just feeling so bad, and he said that just wasn't pono, you know, and it's like back then it was being struggled with, but to hear like how it's kind of at this point in time, and this is kind of what we need, and to know that we're on the right path, that Allah, it's not a path that we started. It's started from people like Uncle Alfred and his kūpuna and all of your kūpuna, to discover what is Kaumaka through the mo'olelo of our kūpuna and the aina. So yeah, and mahalo. That's kind of my uwahi mana'o and what I learned. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Kabuka. And so to share about Kayaulu will be Ulise Funaki.
Aloha mai kako, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Is it okay? Sorry, I'm forced to be outside today, so in the wonderful, lovely Kahuku. But aloha again to everybody. Will be sharing about Kayaulu and its importance in our North Shore Field School, and kako to everything that everyone else has shared as well. To go along the lines with Kumukavika, what he had shared, when we go to Waialua, when we enter into these Kayaulu, it is with a purpose to help, to be of service, and to be of benefit to the community. Academic work has always been marred by academics, professors, researchers going in and take. And that was never the goal and purpose of this field school. I have only been in the field school for a year, going on to my second year working with Kumukavika and the crew. But I have definitely learned a lot on true Kuleana-based ethnographic work. I share with you here a picture of two of the kūpuna who are a part of our ethnographic work, our interviews. And the reason I do this is because even though our purpose was to go in to Waialua, Haleiwa, into this moku and this aina to gather in data and information, stories, mo'olelo, to preserve it. Our kuleana, as well as Kumu had stated, was to create pono relationships and to do everything in a pono way that built a reciprocal relationship between us in the field school and those in the community, the kupuna, where we get to a point where it's no longer us and them. Yeah, it's we one ohana. And so these two kupuna here that I share with you, even though we had finished all the transcriptions, the product, our academic product, has now been completed, story maps, recorded interviews and videos. That doesn't mean that's the end of our pilina. After all of our work was completed, we still had work to be done. That work was in fostering, caring for our pilina with these kupuna, their ohana, and the community itself. One of the work that I had done outside of the field school work was working with one of these kupuna here, Kupuna Wahine, in helping connecting her with certain resources for her own ethnographic work, so to say, working with her own mo'oku auhau, trying to find more information on her family history to preserve for herself and her and her mamo and her descendants. Kanoi, could we get the next slide, please? And again here, although our work at the field school was lava, our pilina is not lava. And so one of our kupuna, as pictured here, she is very much involved in her community and especially in her church community. I'm so sorry about the wind if you guys can hear that. But that is her life. That is who, what drives her. And when we went to her church community, you could see it. Everyone knew her. Everyone relied on her. Everyone has to ask her questions, make sure they're doing things right. And so we wanted to show support for our auntie here. And even though we had already finished everything, we had shown our kako'o, our aloha to her by going, supporting her luau, her church luau, and we got to hang out with her and hang out with other members of the community and wala'au, get to know them and just see her in action. And it was refreshing to see, because when she was very hesitant at first to join and to have her mo'olelo recorded and to talk story with, but many kupuna are that way. It took her cousin, who was a past member, to bring her in And, you know, as a kūpuna, of course, you know, she's a little frail here and there, but she still gets spunk. But when she was in her environment, when she was at that church, man, she was pew, pew, pew. She was everywhere. She didn't even need her cane. And that was one of the highlights for us, to see that, you know, we forget often that when we read these stories, these transcriptions, when we watch these videos, we forget that these were real people with real lives. And we do not want to be a field school where we are intruding on that, misrepresenting that, but we want to add to it. And we want to be sure that we represent properly and in a pono fashion the lives of these people. And so a lot of our transcription work with this certain kupuna had a lot to do with her church work, a lot to do with her family history and what she wished her own family can know and learn from. And so that's what I'd like to close with, is that ethnographic work, if you even want to call it that, has a lot to do nowadays with groups such as us in trying to establish pono, pilina pono, pono relationships, and to create an environment of reciprocal benefits. Yeah, we help each other out, and just because the academic side is done, it doesn't mean we're done being friends, we're done being ohana. No, we move on with each other together, striving to, you know, malama aloha ke kahi ke kahi. And so it's a very much a kuleana, kaiaulu, pono based work. So mahalo.
Mahalo, Ulysses. I just want to jump in real fast because I see people even chatting the names that, yeah, this is Auntie Lois Pokoba, and then her cousin, who she was standing with in the other picture, Auntie Judy Maram. It was Auntie Judy who was the one who brought in Auntie Lois, and again, with this focus on Ohana, you know, it was because of that pilina, their relationship, and because of Auntie Judy's real dedication to her broader Ohana, and this on her minor side. She's a minor, as well as a Chiu, I think. So it was on the minor side that she was like, oh, I'm gonna bring my cousin. She tried bringing all her cousins, but this is the only one who would. And Auntie basically had to go with her granddaughter to go pick her up and bring her. But yeah, like Ulysses said, when we went to the church, you know, it was outside of the interview, but we just wanted to support, and that's what really made it so much more meaningful, and things really did kind of change after that. Unfortunately, this was also just shortly before the pandemic kind of shut us down, so we didn't get to fully open up those pilina. But it was really nice to be a part of it.
Mahalo.
So to kind of tie in all three together, we have our wonderful Ku'ule Freed here.
Aloha mai tākou. I'm Ku'ule Freed. I've been working with the field school as a graduate assistant for the last 2 years, and before that as the undergraduate assistant. So I've been out in Waialua for a few years. And today I wanted to share with you guys this would be one of the outcomes of my academic research, would be the product, these maps. However, like Ulysses had shared, really with everything that we try to teach the students and that we ourselves are trying to learn when we go out to Waialua, it's not about us. And so to start all of this off, I think I'd like to share a few mo'olelo with you guys about the maps themselves. And the first being is how the project got created. And so I knew that I didn't want to go into talking story with kūpuna and be like an academic or even a student who knew anything at all, but instead to be able to be a benefit to the community in some way or form. And so when we were doing some of our talk story sessions with the different narrators to find people who wanted to come and talk with the students for the field school, one of the conversations that ended up coming up was the changing of place names and how not just the younger generation didn't know place names, but also a lot of the new people who had been moving in. And we're talking like the last decade, and 10 years is not a very long time for families who have been living there for generations. And so because the place names were changing, the kūpuna themselves thought that it would be a good idea to create a map that had the place names on them so that they could continue to tell the stories later on for their families. And so this is how the project was born. And so part of that, I would also say, I worked primarily with Uncle Leif Anderson. And so part of this was, it was also like his project, you know, it wasn't just me. I wasn't gonna just go around and find people to talk to, but I was tagging along with him while he went around. And so we did a bunch of different huaka'i all around the Moku, from Waimea to Ka'ena up into the mountains. As he could show his home and talk story. And one of the intentions, especially from Uncle Leif, was to create a map that had multiple voices coming from the community. So unfortunately, one of the side effects of the coronavirus is that we didn't get around to as many people as we wanted to. And so primarily, a lot of the stories come from Uncle Leif, but not all of them. And so as a way to perhaps bring all three themes together, these maps, I think, are a good indication, are good like physical piece of all three of them, because so the maps themselves, I think of as mo'olelo. And so in the same way that we learn how to listen to what is being said and what is not being said, we learn how to listen to all of the things that are going on around us and not just the voice of the person who is telling the story. The maps themselves also have those qualities in a few senses. And so there are some place names that are informal. There are the ones that the community themselves used or the children used while they were growing up. And there are some that are formal. And so the inclusion of them on the map, for instance, Laniakea is placed on one of these maps. And Laniakea is known as a tourist beach. Primarily the information on the map about Laniakea comes from place names of Hawaii. It doesn't come from any of the narrators themselves. But the reason that it was placed on the map is because for one, Laniakea has a lot of problems around tourism and traffic over there, but also because the name is trying to be changed to Turtle Beach in many different aspects. Sometimes it's been introduced in community meetings, and Waikiki actually touts it as Turtle Beach in a lot of their pamphlets. And so as a reminder, Laniakea has been put on the map because the name is not Turtle Beach. There are some places, some place names on the map that are not necessarily accurate. And that's because this map is not necessarily made to give accurate locational points. They're made to share experiences in mo'olelo. And so there are some places here that the person who shared the story wanted the story shared, but maybe perhaps not exactly the location. And so the location is intentionally not correct. And I think the last mo'olelo I would share is one of the people that I spoke with. I had shown him an early draft of the map, and he was, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I cannot add to any of these land locations, these names that you have on the maps. But he said, I can talk all about the ocean. And so he went on and on talking about all of the fish and the different run of the fish, where it runs, how it runs, why it runs. And it was a really amazing and great conversation. Unfortunately, a whole lot of that stuff is never going to show up on the map because none of that stuff is for everybody. A lot of what he shared has to do with his own family and his own ohana. So there are a few placements that are on the map that have to do with the ocean. But all of these different components are important to think about in order to create such a map, something that can share experiences and even relationships of the community while still maybe keeping hidden some things, if we can say it that way. And also, like Elise said, so this is what we currently have as far as the maps go. But once COVID is over and done, the work itself is not done, and the maps will continue to be added to, so that there are more voices from the community, so that really in the end these maps are something that the families in Waialua can hold on and share, and can look at and feel a piece of themselves, because then they can talk about it with their families and share all of the stories up here. Mahalo.
Mahalo ku'une. And Kaumaka.
Aloha mai kako. I'm Kaumaka, Wanokaniko from Punalu'u, and I've been with this field school for a while, and I will mention it in my discussion. Ho'opukalama kahikina. The sun, the moon, the planets, and the stars all rise in the east and they set in the west. And that's because the earth rotates or spins toward the east. And that's why the sun, moon, planets, and stars all rise in the east and make their way westward across the sky. It is important to know our physical place on this earth and interpersonal relationships with our ohana and kaia'ulu as well. 2021 marked my 7th year with this program, when it covered the 2 types of archaeological sites mentioned by Professor Tangon. First at Kūpuna, then moving to Uko'a habitation site, and then as we transition from archaeology to ethnography. I liken this journey to a voyaging canoe. Field school was there in the moku of Waialua, Kapailoa, at the Kupopolo Heiau in 2015, where I started collecting my provisions for my voyage. At Uko'a habitation site, an MA thesis developed equating to the knowledge of the fermentation of ulu and other foods to sustain this voyage. I landed a job with International Archaeological Research Institute, Incorporated, my present employer, who hired me in 2016 to survey Uko'a habitation site. I liken that employment to the water I take on my journey, and ua I capture by way of my sails. 2018, the field school transitioned to ethnography, collecting oral histories, and this knowledge and experience equates to the plants and animals to assist in the settlement stewardship of my new homeland, but in this case, my one hanao, or sands of birth, the Akapo'a of Punalu'u, in the moku of Ko'ololoa, where we run a newly organized company, Punalu'u Aloha LLP. We'll be maintaining kūpuna, or ancestral places, on the lands of the Kamehameha schools. Here we plan to manage a Hawaiian program incorporating mo'oku auhau, history, mo'olelo, mele, oli, language, mahi'ai techniques, harnessing the mahina, other cultural facets, and of course, archaeology. This past week, we received our first intern from Kahuku High School, a senior named Quentin Spencer. He will spend at least 50 hours with my company. His classes are 100% online due to COVID. I have laid out assignments for the 50 hours allotted. Quentin has ohana throughout the Waialua Moku and Punalu'u as well. His kuleana is to research the genealogy of his ohana from Punalu'u for these 6 previous generations. He is to perform research about land use, both digitally and through oral history, communicating with family members and others. He will be directed to the different resources, websites, in order to find information such as familysearch.org, Awakonohiki, Ulukau, Papakilo database, and others. He is to find one olelo or mele involving Punalu'u and give an interpretation in the form of art or expression. He will choose a favorite archaeological artifact, feature, or site that may have been a part of his family's life and explain the use and connection. And then he will apply all his research in the form of a PowerPoint presentation ending his internship. I believe that assignments will keep him in touch with his inner self, ohana, kaia'u, and prepare him for his voyage in college and in life. I hope to leave a legacy for our future generations in the moku of Ko'olauloa. Mahalo. Oh, and we can change to the next slide. This is the journey with the canoe going all the way from Waialua Moku to the Ko'olauloa Moku. Okay, here we have our 2018-2019 kūpuna, and in honor of all our kūpuna pictured here and not pictured here, I want to name all of them. So here we have Auntie Kanani with the hat to the left and the purple dress. Behind her is her son, Keith Awai. Next to Keith is Auntie Gay Timon. Next to Auntie Gay is Uncle Herbert Chun and his wife, who is sitting to the right, Mary Chun. And next to her is Uncle George Ai. And next to Uncle George with the lepo'o is Auntie Emmeline Kazi. And in the next photo here, we have the 2019 narrators. In front is our Uncle Alfred Alameda. And to the left of him and back is Uncle Kimo Lyman. And behind Kimo, Uncle Kimo, is Auntie Leilani Pereira. And in front of Auntie Leilani is Uncle Pocho Pereira. And to the right is Uncle Leaf Anderson, who Lay mentioned. And in front of him is Auntie Diane Cannon. And to the left is our Auntie Judy Moran. And I think we have a 2020 also that I want to mention. Yes, his kahu Kenneth Segawa to the left, and this is Auntie Lois, as we mentioned earlier, Auntie Lois Pacoba, and then right next to Auntie Lois is Uncle John Hirota, and to the not the last, one of the best kupas I know, our super kupa, Moki Labra. Moki has been with the program from the very beginning. He's been with the program before I was even with the program. And a lot of our pike is directly associated with Moki. Actually, a story map of Auntie Diane Naomi Cannon. Auntie Diane and her family, which was the Sato, she's from the Sato family, lived at Loko'ea Fish Pond in Haleiwa. This is Auntie Diane. And then it shows her house, a map of her house and her grandfather's house and different places at the fish pond. And this is her family, and this is the house at Loko'ea and all her brothers and sisters. And this is her parents and her Gigi or her grandmother, and her grandfather. And scenes of Loko'ea. And Auntie Diane has plenty favorite stories. This is the one she talks about the ohole and catching the ohole with her hands.
Should we watch this one, Kaumaka?
If you want to, yeah.
That's it.
Prevalent in here. But ahole lived. She loved ahole.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loved ahole, and that was another fish that was very prevalent in here. But ahole lives. They go into rocks, and right here at the end of this walkway, there's another bridge going up to the back. Okay, right in the right-hand corner below. That was where the favorite place of the ahole used to. I say they go in there and sleep, but I remember it being there. And when Auntie Fanny wanted ahole, she used to make it raw with limo. I used to go there and she said, "Go get me hole. I want to eat ahole." So, how many you want, Auntie? Maybe about 10. Okay. So I sit there. I don't know how long I sat there, but I knew they would come in there, and they'd come in. I could be sitting right in the water. They'd come in and they'd go around me and underneath the rock. So I was very still. Yeah. And then I would put on my mom's garden glove, and then I would stick my hand in there. Mind you, we knew that there were Samoan crabs all over the dikes, yeah. But I knew they weren't in there because the fish always goes directly in there. And Samoan crabs will eat fish. You know what I mean? They'll eat the fish. So I stick my hand in there with the glove, and I just grab
I just grabbed them and they flap a little bit and then I put it in a bag and I go there and I go get another one. Hole has a lot of spikes on them. Their fins are sharp, but for some reason it never bothered me because you treat them very gently. You just hold on to them. They flap a little bit, but then they're okay, and you put them in the bag. Wow. And I could sit there for hours, just as long as I got 10. I knew my Auntie Fanny would be happy, and so then I take it up to her.
That's one of her stories, but she has many stories. I mean, she even has a story with the Mo'ovahine, Lani Vahine from this pond. She has so many stories. And it was so interesting to hear her and sit there and just take everything in. Her family was very much involved with the community too. Her grandfather had a restaurant at his place too, and they would have she would have dances at the house as a teenager, and then we even have the last train ride in this video, but it has to take time to load, so we won't show that. And here she talks about the Haleiwa Hotel. She has so many stories, so interesting. I got to meet Auntie Diane's sisters at her house one day when I went to her house, and they have stories too. They all have stories, their family. And this is the tidal wave. She was standing over here. She was standing on that you see where that porch is? She was standing over there while the tidal wave was out. This is her grandfather, and it's a story of. She has a story of Lani Vahine, and I guess you guys can go to her website and see her story. And then she went to nursing school, so she was a nurse. And this is her children, her son and her daughter, and her grandchildren here with her. So they all came to the interview, and they had some things to say, which was very interesting. She has a beautiful family, and we were so happy to capture her story. Hello.
Mahalo. So all of our stories are available on the North Shore Field School website. And so I know we only have a few minutes left, but if anybody has any questions or any of our team wants to share any last mana'o, I guess now's our time.
Yeah, something real quick on my bad. Kind of forget everything. So much going on, and I was kind of asked to share one experience. But every time I go out there, there's so much experiences. So excuse my forgetting this. But also part of the kūpunas from that initial group was Jock Sutherland. And I also want to give a big mahalo to Malia Evans Mason, who kind of introduced the technological aspects of the field school to me as my first year as a student there.
You know what? I also forgot. I was going to mention the people that were missing. So in our first year, Jock Sutherland was missing, Uncle Francis Forsyth and Auntie Vanny Anana. And then in the other picture for 2019, Uncle Kenneth Souza was missing. Sorry about that. I forgot to mention those people, which I wanted to mention. We love our kūpuna.
And yeah, appreciate Kawika. I was going to mention this too. Malia Evans was actually one of the first kumu. The first year she was with me, the co-kumu, and really an important connection for us with the community, a part of the civic club, and a long time, organizer. So it was really in large part because of her that we also had that kind of introduction and connection with community that we did. And as was mentioned, Moki Labra, who, as Kaumaka mentioned, was from day one back in the archaeology field school, and played different roles throughout the many years, and finally this last year was one of the narrators, and we're glad we got to kind of record his story too, even though he's on the younger side of kūpuna, but still was one who had a lot of ike that was valuable. So. Are we opening this to anybody? Any questions on people coming in, or how does the Q&A work right now? To our moderator, Kalamai.
So if we don't have any more questions, we can just have like maybe a minute more, and then we can see if there are any more questions that come up, and then we'll just kind of close it at this time for moving on to our keynote. But let's just give it a minute and see if anyone else has questions. Okay. You know, I must say, mahalo nui to you folks for coming together to share the richness of our kūpuna through your voices, through your mana'o and mo'olelo, and those images were amazing. And mahalo nui for sharing that website. That is amazing, awesome. And I really didn't know my anake, Vanderlyn Anana, my mother's sister, was a part of this project. So mahalo for sharing. I have to get back to my anake and talk story with her now. So you have helped me connect and make it a mission to reconnect with her, because she does have so many mo'olelo about Haleiwa. So mahalo nui for that, for sharing that. But lots of mahalo from all these people to all of you, and so much for sharing your aloha. So for all of you here present today, we want to mahalo you. We want to mahalo the North Shore Ethnographic Field School for all the fantastic work that they're doing, what they've been sharing with us today. We're just getting, feels like just a taste of the depth of work. And I love it that you folks are talking about, it doesn't end, it's not pa'a, it's not here, not pau now. You gotta continue this work and bring it to light for our future generations. That is just incredible. So I really wanna mahalo you folks for giving us just a glimpse into this hana that you folks are doing. And before we close up everyone today, honoring our participants as well, mahalo for being here. And hopefully, like they say, you know, you tap into your kūpuna as well before they disappear on us, because they have that ike that is, we can't capture it any other way. So we have to go out